Hey guys, I have a question for you. Are you doing teletherapy and maybe it's working and maybe it's not working? I've done teletherapy on and off for about 10 years because I've worked with kids that live in remote areas. And today, everyone is scrambling to try to figure out what are the best practices of teletherapy. I've been really fortunate. I have 3 kids right now I'm doing teletherapy with, and it's going really, really well. So here's my 5 best tips on how to make it successful. The first thing you want to do is make sure you're choosing the appropriate technology. And there's really 2 things to take into account when choosing the right technology. The first thing you want to take into account is very simply what families are able to have access to and whether or not they're comfortable using technology. So if a parent is not really comfortable with using computers, using something like Zoom or GoToMeetings or Google Hangout, it might be really hard for them to set up. If things are difficult, parents are already having reservations, they may not be willing to do it. So it's something to take into account. You may sometimes something simple like a FaceTime or some sort of video chat app, if it's legal in your state with the HIPAA laws, that might be the best option for families that are really uncomfortable with technology. The other thing you want to take into account is what you want to do. For me, I find that being able to have a screen share feature is really, really helpful. I'm working with some older kids and for them, I want to be able to play games back and forth. So I want to give them remote access to my computer. So knowing the features and functions of your software will make that really, really important. And you have to really understand the technology. I had people reach out to me saying, well, I play a video on Zoom, and the person can't hear it, but you have to know how to share your screen sound so that way it doesn't come through your microphone and have an echo or delay. There's some other tips about using any sort of screen sharing app. I always make sure I only screen share the tab that I'm working in and never ever share your entire computer because something can pop up. I have a MacBook, so I get notifications. If I share my entire computer, then parents will see those notifications. In the event that you just have sharing a tab on a Chrome, or Google Chrome is what I use or what I recommend, then that will be much safer in terms of protecting your family and protecting, yourself, your own personal data as well. The other thing I like to do is to share an incognito window. What that means is you open a secret window into Google Chrome that doesn't have any history. And what that's going to do is prevent families from accidentally seeing anything you were browsing, whether it's personal related or for another child. So that's a really good thing. A note on technology: clearing your cache before and after each session. So again, there's no history and there's nothing preloaded that could potentially expose a family to something they're not supposed to see. So that's my first tip regarding regarding technology. The second thing is to have a professional backdrop and professional lighting. So you can see my eyes, right? That's really important for kids. Number one, you want to build trust with families. And right now, a lot of the communication that's done non-verbally, it's not going to be there. It's a different level of communication. You want to make sure you're really well lit. When a child can look into your eyes and pay attention, it'll create a more personal experience. And they'll also be able to pay attention to you better. You want to see their mouth moving. So if you're trying to get a young kid to imitate sounds, like I have a kid I work with, and he says the donkey says e, and I want him to say e, ah, right? He has to be able to see my mouth. E, ah. If he can't see what I'm doing, well, then it's not going to work, right? So you want to make sure you have good lighting. The other thing is making sure you have a professional background. This is just a white wall because I make these videos. My studio or my office is set up with a little studio. I have lights in my office. I have box lighting. I'll put a link to the box light that I use to make sure it's lit really well. And then I have a white wall, but you also would want to get a backdrop. This is one thing I always tell parents. So we are entering parents' homes, right now virtually. So we might see their kitchen, we might see their living room, we might see their bedroom. We don't have any control who's walking around their Zoom, but parents essentially shouldn't feel like they're entering your home. There should be still a degree of privacy for the parents. You don't want to do this in your living room, have your kitchen as your background. Have a clean, plain white background. It's also a lot less distracting for the kids. I've seen a lot of people putting Zoom background filters or some sort of digital background. If you want to do that, I don't think it's a good idea. It doesn't really look good unless you have a really high quality web camera and you have a green screen it doesn't really look good. Like it just doesn't work. It's going to be distracting. Every time you move, your body pixelates. It's going to be very distracting for children. You know, sometimes people think that kids will find it funny to have like animated backgrounds going on, like a fish or a jungle or being in a beach. It's really distracting for children. I find, you know, for some kids it may work. But again, like unless you have a really good camera, good system, you're much better off with just a plain white background. That's my personal opinion. So the other thing you want to make sure, so tip number 3 is to prep materials ahead of time. This is not only just knowing what you're going to do. You know, listen, guys, a lot of us, we're going to be kind of winging it, right? We're making this up as we go along because we've never done this before. But parents shouldn't know that. They shouldn't feel like you're just making this up as you go. So what I recommend is having everything open you're going to use. That way there's no delay. And that includes opening tabs up. You know, if you're using a YouTube video and you don't have a account that's ad-free, make sure that video is loaded and the ad is already played. You know, make sure if you're using Google Slides, if you have 5 slideshows you're going to use, open up 5 different tabs. If you're going to use boom cards, make sure the boom cards are already opened and you're not open to what you're going to do. If you want to read a story to a child, you know, I like to use storyonline.net. It's a great resource for actors reading stories. You make sure it's already open to the story you're going to use. Make sure it's already loaded. So when you press play, it just goes. You know, we're trying to get children's attention, and that is harder over a screen because we're not there. And if there's any sort of delay, we're going to lose them, and it's far more difficult to get them back once we lose their attention. So the number 4, the thing you want to do is you want to take into account, my tip 4, a child's sensory needs. Some children do really, really well with visual stimulus. So I have one child I work with where he likes to touch everything and he likes to line everything up. So when I'm doing flashcards with him, it's really, really challenging in person because he wants to grab the flashcard, he wants to line it up, and then I have to choose between allowing him to do that and then interrupting the behavior. If I interrupt the behavior, he's going to get upset, and what I'm going to accomplish is teaching him not to line things up, versus if I'm, you know, letting him do it, then I can work on the language. Well, I don't have to make that choice because I present him with digital flashcards, and it goes really, really, really well. I have another child I work with, and they are undersensitive to visual input, so they are not interested at all in screens. Believe it or not, most therapists and parents watching this will be surprised, but they don't like TV. They don't have any interest in the television. They have to touch everything. They want everything to be like very, very tactile. They're very good into their hands. They're very big into art. Well, with that child, I prepare a list of activities ahead of time. I let the family know what they're going to be. And then, you know, we do physical things. If I was just playing videos or flashcards electronically, or like a Google slide presentation, which works really, really well for that other learner that's very visual, it's not going to work for this person. This person is not going to pay attention to it. You know, oftentimes as therapists, we think something's a reinforcer like a video, and it may be for some children, but it's not for all children. So we really, really want to take into account each learner's learning style when presenting information. And, you know, my final tip is just to ask families how things are going. You know, I always like to create a relationship with my parents that I work with where they can tell me anything, if something's working for them or not working for them. You know, sometimes therapists, we get this idea that there's one way to do things and it's only our way. And our way is the right way and every other way is wrong. And that's just not the case. You know, something may be really good in a textbook, but if a family can't carry it out, it's not going to work for the child. And it's our responsibility to find something that will work for a family. It's not the family's responsibility to adapt to meet our needs. So, you know, usually when a parent understands what you're trying to accomplish and they know how you're going to get there, they're willing to work with you, but create that open dialogue. Now is more important than ever. You know, we probably can't see our parents on the screen. We can only see the child. So if the parent's sitting next to them, we may not be able to see their face, and they're probably not saying much. So we don't really have any information about how they feel like the session's going. So we can't see their body language. We can't see their faces, their emotional reactions. So ask them, hey, you know what do you think went really well today in the session? You know, what do you think you'll be able to carry over when the session leaves? What did we do today that you think you may not be able to do when I'm not here? You know, is there anything you would like to do differently? You know, is there any activity you think that your child really, really likes? Asking these questions will allow them to give you feedback, and it'll allow you to modify things to make sure that it's going to be successful. It's really, really important. Communication is never more important than ever. And, you know, my final advice on communication is don't tell families like, hey, you know what, I have this all figured out and this is going to be perfect. and we're going to embrace teletherapy. I tell parents, listen, you know what? I'm learning how to do this too, just like you are. I've never done this before with your child. And so I'm going to do the very best that I can. We're going to work together. I promise you, we will make it work, but it's going to be a learning process for both of us. And every session is going to get better and better. And I'm going to guarantee that when we'll figure this out, and we'll make it work. And when you approach families from that angle, they're going to work with you, and the teletherapy will be really successful. So I really hope these tips helps. I also have these tips in a blog post. If you want to see it, head over to my website, hopeeducationservices.com. If you're watching this video, sign up for the list. I have exclusive events only for members of my lists. Like, for example, tomorrow night, if you're lucky enough to watch this video today, you'll get the invitation if you get on the list today. I have an event where I'm bringing a special education attorney on for a private webinar just for people of my list who can ask this special education attorney questions about their child's services on their IEP if they're not being delivered, or about next year's IEP. So that's an example of something only people from my list get to have access to, and I want that person to be you. So head over to my website, get on my list, subscribe to this channel. I put videos out just like this one every single day. If you have a question, I love to answer it. Just drop me an email and I'll make a video to answer your question.